Welcome back to the lab with your host, Brad Bolt. Welcome back to the lab. Back to the lab. Welcome back to the lab. Back to the lab.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another episode of the Brad Bolt Show, part of the NFL Lab Network. And joining me, the crew is back together again for the first time in a couple of weeks. It's our good friends. It's John Roberts. How are you, JR?
Yeah, doing well, in high spirits, I'll tell you that much.
The high spirits. We've had some good college football over the weekend, and now we're getting ready for the NFL season to start. So it's all happening. Finally, the grind is about to kick off, and we can't wait.
That's it.
Joining us as well, first time back for a couple of weeks, the Yeti, Dan O'Connell. Dan, how's it going?
Brad, finally back on. It's been, like you said, a couple of weeks and been missing you guys chatting on here like this. So
I know. It's good to have everyone back.
yeah.
It is. And then we are looking forward to this. We've got the Saturday Air Raid, of course, coming out this weekend as well, where we'll recap the college games, and we may even have a little NFL chat in there as well. But that is for Saturday. So today's show, because week one is starting in just a couple of days, we are going to do some preseason predictions for our award winners, playoff teams, Super Bowl champs, and then we're going to give a quick rundown of the week one games this week. So I think we should start off with Mr. John Roberts. We are going to look at who your MVP winner is going to be this year.
So I might talk about a couple of them, because if you haven't noticed, I've actually stacked a lot of my options together. Let me start off with I'll say Justin Herbert is who I'm gunning for. But for, like, everything that I'm about to say, it's all dependent on the teams and the players staying healthy for the most part. And I don't mean like, Mike Williams has to stay healthy. Mike Williams won't stay healthy, but for the rest of them, they all have to stay healthy. I think that, Justin Herbert's the kind of player who came into the league, has set a new record for total passing touchdowns in his second season. He threw first. Was it like 5,000 yards at least?
Yeah, it was something.
Yeah, maybe I'll go fact check that now. But the only reason last season that he was really held back was, for the most part, I saw a stat. I'm sorry, I can't remember who it was from, but he played less than 25% of his entire total playing time last season was with both Mike Williams and Keenan Allen on the field at the same time. I think if they can stay together, and now with the addition of Quentin Johnson, Austin Eckler's going to be back, Gerald Everett is going to shoot through as well, Kellen Moore's there, I think this is all primed to be his year and the Chargers' year. I know they're cursed, but I believe.
So just on your stats, you were saying, so his rookie season, he threw for 4,336 yards, 31 touchdowns, and 10 interceptions.
Not bad. Missed the game as well, the first game.
Missed the game. Year two, 5,014 yards, 38 touchdowns, 15 picks.
Not bad, Bradley.
And then last year, he played most of the year with broken ribs or rib cartilage, and he threw for 4,739 yards, 25 touchdowns, and 10 picks.
Yeah. And he got paid a lot of money to do it, and they have to do it this year. Otherwise, they're going to have to make some huge changes next season. So,
when you think about the way he plays as well, like, he's got a massive arm, but the way he's been playing, they've forced him, or not forced him, but they've had him sort of dinking and dunking a lot more than what he should be, to be honest, as well.
Yeah.
I think that's where Callum Moore comes in and has the biggest effect on that team.
Yeah.
They'll try and push it downfield a lot more.
His EPA per play, I think, will take a huge, significant jump.
Yeah, big time.
Yeah, and he was my second choice for MVP. I went with, and I believe, Dan, you've actually got the same guy here. We've both gone for Jalen Hurts.
Yep.
He finished runner-up last year.
He did, missing 2 games.
Yeah, so I just think, especially too, with the losing in the Super Bowl, getting so close, this just sort of feels like one of those revenge comeback tour type of seasons I'm expecting from Hurts. So that was the reason why I picked him there. Have you got any other reasoning behind that, Dan? Or
yeah, I think just with his natural progression at quarterback as well. We've seen it each year now from him, and I think we'll see another. I don't want to say jump because that implies that he's going to have a massive leap, but just being able to control the game, taking that another step now as well, and just being that more complete quarterback as well, where I think his passing game will flourish a lot more than what it has been, kind of thing. He's been relying on his legs a lot, and we've seen the passing game now start to catch up a bit as well. So I think that passing game will have another jump this year.
Yeah. So we'll move on to offensive. We'll go out offensive player of the year. So I'll jump first on this one. I have gone with one who is no one's really even speaking about too much, and I'm going to have Jamar Chase. Is going to be my offensive player of the year.
He was my runner-up.
Yeah, I just sort of think
we've lost Dan. Going to deal with the situation. Never mind. Sorry.
I just think that we will see a big jump from Jamar Chase this year, and I think we'll go and a lot more of my players from this team will pop up in other sort of situations. So who have you got there, John?
Yeah, look, call me cute, but I think I've maybe I'm overthinking it, but I'm not sure that I am. I went with Nick Chubb, and the reason I've gone with Nick Chubb is because think about what Derrick Henry was doing only a few years ago, where it was really like he was in strong contention for Offensive Player of the Year. If not for, I think he broke his foot towards the end of the season. I'm talking about the 2021 season, maybe it was 2020, I can't remember. One of the two, where he was just destroying teams. We know as the year goes on, he only gets stronger as well. But Nick Chubb, I think he's going to be the crux of this Cleveland Browns offense. I think they're going to lean on him a lot. They got rid of Kareem Hunt. I hope that Deshaun Watson still sucks, and that they're going to need, and they have also mentioned that they want to use him in the passing game as well. So I think that he's going to take the bulk of the offense. I think it's going to be a really competitive division, and I think that means that they're going to have to lean on him a lot. And I think as the year goes on, they'll probably turn to him more and more. I think I'm not going to say 1,000 and 1,000, but I think it'll definitely be like it could be close to 2,000 all-purpose yards.
I like that pick of Nick Chubb. So Dan, we've got Dan back with us now. So I went Jamar Chase, John went Nick Chubb, and who is your offensive player of the year, Dan?
So I just jumped back in and I heard John saying 1,000, 1,000. I figured he was just talking about my guy, which is CMC.
He's done it before.
So I think he's going to have another year where he's putting up 1,000, 1,000. I think he's in for a massive year. We saw what he did last year when he came to San Fran. I think he's just going to have another massive year as well. And I think they'll leave. I don't think they'll lean on him more than what they have, sort of thing, or what they did in Carolina. But I think his efficiency will be off the charts this year in that offense.
So that was going to be my question. I didn't see him having the same type of role in San Francisco that he did in Carolina. So I was going to that was going to be my question. How did you see him getting to that 1,000 and 1,000 if he's not on the field as much?
I don't think it's not that he'll be on the field as much. I think it'll be, he won't be on the field as much as he was in Carolina because they used him an awful lot there, where they can spell him a little more in San Francisco. But I think within that offense, there's weapons everywhere. So it opens up a lot more for him on that field, which is where I think he'll get the yards. He'll get those chunk plays as well. So I think he's just in for a massive year and definitely see him looking at that 1,000, 1,000 again.
And if I might say as well, 6 of his games will be against the Seattle Seahawks, the LA Rams, and the Arizona Cardinals. So if you want to put up some epic performances, those are 3 defenses.
Those are the games you're on
that against.
Yeah, no, exactly. So defensive player of the year, John, I'll let you lead this off because we've all got the exact same guy here. So
like I said before, I've stacked mine. I'm moving to the other side now of the team that's going to go all the way. Micah Parsons, I think he has been primed to do this for a few years now. He's absolutely shot out of the cannon, and I love these defensive players who are like edge, they line, their linebacker. They're playing all over the field. They're incredibly athletic. They're incredibly quick, and they're an absolute shutdown. And the other thing about defensive players of the year is they're usually supported by the cast around them as well. It's like they'll be the the headliner of the act, but they're nothing without the team around them. And I think the Cowboys probably have the best defense in the league this year.
Yeah, I can't argue with that. I really like their defense, and like you said, he is one of the few guys in the league. It feels like where teams have to spend the whole week in the lead up game planning on how to stop Micah Parsons, and it feels like no matter what they do, he still wrecks the game.
Yeah.
So we're pretty unanimous there with that. So Yeti, I'll let you lead off with the offensive rookies of the year. Who've you got?
So I've gone. I think he's a smoky just because you look at the top three kind of guys will be CJ Stroud, Bryce Young, and Bijan. But for me, I think Jahmyr Gibbs can have as big of a season, maybe not rushing wise, obviously, but I think he'll more than make up for it in receiving yards. So when you look at all scrimmage yards, I think Jahmyr Gibbs can have just as big of a season as Bijan can. And I think on the team like Detroit, they can win 11 games this year. And I think he'll be a big part of it. So I've got him winning Offensive Rookie of the Year this year.
So my question with that is, what sort of stat line does Jahmyr actually have to put up to eclipse Bijan and maybe one of these quarterbacks that you're talking about?
I think Jahmyr can, the way they're going to use him with the depth at wide receiver they've got, and they've got Sam Laporta at tight end now, but he's a rookie, so we know how rookie tight ends tend to go. I think Jahmyr Gibbs can push 1,000 yards receiving. And then you look at his rushing. I don't know exactly what he's going to get rushing, but I wouldn't be shocked if he's putting up 800 yards rushing.
So you're about 1,700 yard total scrimmage yards then, roughly around there.
I'd say that's the baseline that I'm looking at for him to get this year.
Yeah, okay. Not a bad one. So, JR, what's your thoughts on offensive rookie of the year?
Just on that one, I was just trying to have a quick look if I could find any running backs who have ever had 1,000 yards in their rookie season receiving. I might need to dig a little deeper because I can't see anyone who's even really ever come.
But I don't think
that. The closest was Saquon Barkley with 721 receiving yards on 91 receptions. But I look, for the sake of my fantasy teams, I got a lot of Jahmyr Gibbs, and I hope you're right.
But like I said, he's a smoky, so a bit of an outsider.
Yeah. Zeke rushed for 1,600 yards in his rookie season as well. Wow. Okay, I'm getting distracted. Mine, I've gone with CJ Stroud, which should come as no surprise to anyone who's been listening to this podcast for even just a couple of weeks. From the moment we did the live draft, I've always been really, really high on CJ Stroud. Watched him take over from Justin Fields. I think he's an amazing player. I think the only thing really stopping him at the moment is the offensive line is really taking hits left, right, and center, which I don't like to hear. And they have a very, very tough schedule. But I'm hoping that he can overcome them in a way where I'm not sure that Bryce Young can make the most of the situation that he has in Carolina right now. And I know that the receiving options are fairly similar. And I don't see Anthony Richardson getting it either. Even if he rushes for like 800 yards, I still think that they're going to look at his passing ability, which will factor in. So I think that CJ Stroud is in the best position to win it. Being a quarterback, I think it's an easy lean. And yeah, I think he's a great player.
Yeah, so I just was having a quick look while you were talking at the stats. Saquon does look like he was the highest as a rookie with the 700 receiving yards. So it's funny that you mentioned that. My guy was Bryce, and that's not me being a homer. It was
sounds like you are.
it was literally because I probably would have probably gone CJ Stroud if they hadn't had the O-line injuries, and especially Kenyon Green's gone for the season as well. He was put on IR before, so he's out for the season as well. Plus, like we were saying, Titus Howard's out with a broken hand. It's bringing in and Juice Scruggs is on the IR as well for the first 4 games. So it's it's losing that.
Carnage.
Yeah, it's losing. Yeah. So if they had actually been healthy, CJ was actually probably going to be my pick. But I think because of that, Bryce, that's the reason why I've got Bryce there. As you said, it seems like an easier path for a quarterback to win than it is a wide receiver or a running back.
And that's the thing, like, all of these quarterbacks are in shit situations. It's just how they're going to make the most of it. Like,
yeah.
For what it's worth, it's probably like Will Levis is probably in the best situation of all of them, but he's not.
He's not going to play. Yeah, because my thing too was Bryce has got a pretty decent offensive line. They had a few struggles in the preseason, but they get some of that. They get Austin Corbett will come back a few games into the season, who played really well for them last year at right guard. And as you mentioned, the receiving options aren't fantastic, but if Bryce can play pretty well and throw around that, 3,600 yards, not turn the ball over too many times and get 25, ish touchdowns, like that would be, to me, sort of a pretty decent avenue for offensive rookie of the year there. So
and if I was going to choose, if I wasn't looking for a bit of a smoky pick, like you said, quarterbacks are the easy pick to make. And I would have picked Bryce Young to be offensive rookie of the year if I went that way, because I think Carolina end up with a better win-loss record as well than Houston.
Yeah.
Which will play a big factor as well. So, yeah, if it comes down to those two, I'd lean more towards Bryce Young.
Yeah, so it was, between the two quarterbacks for me. So we'll move on to defensive rookie of the year. I'm going to go with my guy first, and I'm going the Houston Texans, Will Anderson Jr. I just think he's going to look and play he's going to be the star of that defense. That's who they're going to build their defense around. So I'm just expecting him to wreak havoc and just put in one of those rookie seasons where everyone is looking at him and sort of, in 2 years' time, he's taking that Micah Parsons sort of jump where he's in everyone's mind in that conversation for defensive player of the year. So, John, who have you got for your rookie of the year defense?
Mine was between Jalen Carter and Will Anderson, and I lean Jalen Carter, and it's the same thing. I think similar things I was saying about Micah Parsons. Like, again, these defenses, they're sort of pushed up by the players around them. I think Jalen Carter's just in such an amazing situation, great landing spot. So don't need to spend too much time on it. We all know he's a great player, and he could be the best play. Yeah, we'll see.
Yeah. And Dan, you went with the same, didn't you?
I'm Jalen Carter as well. He's the best defensive player in the draft this year.
Yeah.
And I love Will Anderson Jr., but I think defenses are able to scheme towards him a lot more on that defense than what they're going to be able to do with Jalen Carter. I think Jalen Carter is going to get so many free runs at the quarterback this year just because of how good that Philly defense is. So I think he's going to just put up monster stats, and I think he'll reach double-digit sacks this year.
We all went chalk. We all went the same with defensive player of the year. So I wanted to switch it up so we weren't all exact same with defensive rookie of the year. So now we can move on to coach of the year. Now, Dan, who have you got as your coach of the year for this season?
I have gone Sean McDermott. I think that the Bills they're reaching the point where they need to. I shouldn't say they need to, but it's reaching the point now where they need to take that next step over to get over the hump and get to a Super Bowl this year. And I think they will. And I think Sean McDermott's just a really good coach as well. And he's been thereabouts the last couple of years as well. So I think this is the year where we finally see Buffalo take that step, and he'll be a massive part of it with his coaching.
Yeah, I mean, I can see it. I would think they'd have to have almost maybe not a perfect record, but they'd have to be in that 14-3, 15-2 sort of range, I think, for him to win, which I can't really count Buffalo out when they've got Josh Allen on their side for being that. So I'll do my coach of the year. I've got, as I mentioned, I've bunched a couple of my guys together, and I've got Zach Taylor as my coach of the year. Because I think as when we were going through the divisions, John, as we were doing our additions and subtractions, we were looking at one of the hardest divisions is actually the AFC North. So I feel like if he can come out of that with a 12 or a 13-ish win season, get the Bengals up to Super Bowl sort of thing. I think he's actually in with a shot of winning Coach of the Year with how stacked that the AFC, not just the AFC North, but the AFC overall is this year. So,
Yeah.
who is your Coach of the Year?
Yeah, so I went with Matt LaFleur, and I think it's
Yes.
pretty obvious what needs to happen for him. There's always been the thing of, oh, is it Aaron Rodgers, is it Matt LaFleur? But it's like if you actually think like I do that Aaron Rodgers wasn't great last season. Let's say that Jordan Love comes out firing and he's looking fantastic, and he's connecting with these receivers, they're having a good season. The other thing is the Packers pretty much have the easiest strength of schedule across the league, as we know of week 1. Now that always changes by the time you get to like week 8. But here's some of the teams they play. So they play the Bears, Falcons, Saints, Lions, Raiders. They do play the Broncos, but then it's Vikings, Rams. They also play the Steelers, and Chargers might be tricky. Lions again. They play Chiefs, Giants, Bucks, Panthers, Vikings, Bears. Like, it's not bad. I think that Jordan Love can make the most of that situation. And unlike the guys that you've said, where it's almost you feel like their time has passed in terms of what they can prove. Even if they got to the Super Bowl, will they still win it? I'm not sure. Matt LaFleur, yeah, seriously, if Jordan Love looks good, I think he's a really good chance to be like, okay, like if he can get double-digit wins, I think it's a lot.
So my smoky for this would have probably actually been D'Amico Ryans.
Yeah, as well.
Because if D'Amico could improve that Texans team from like a 2 or a 3 win team to a 7 or an 8 win team, that could be all that you'd need, especially now with all the injuries on the offensive line and things like that. Like if they happen to do something like that, like D'Amico could be a good smoky outsider for that.
Yeah, my only
like that.
concern with that is if you actually look at the Texans schedule, I mean, like they open with at Baltimore, that's going to be brutal for CJ Stroud. Luckily, they play the AFC South, and then they got like they play the AFC North as well. So Steelers, Browns, Bengals. So there's a lot of tough teams in there, but yeah, hopefully they can make the most of that situation.
Yeah, and it would have to be like an 8, 7, 8, 9, 9. If he happened to get to 9 wins, then he's got to be. To me, you'd almost have to have one of the teams go undefeated to actually pip him at the post for a Coach of the Year if he got them to a 9-win team.
I had Houston, I think, with 5 wins on the season. So if they're sitting at 8 wins, that's like 3 wins over. I don't know what their expected total is, to be honest. I think it was
6.5.
6.5, was it?
I think it was 6.5 when we did the preview.
I think that's so high, though, to be honest. Well, that's high. But if they were to beat that by like 2 wins even, or 1.5 wins, that's a massive season for them.
Yeah.
If you're betting that kind of thing, and that's where like the professionals will think to themselves, okay, I could bet Texans to win. Where are they? Houston. I can bet them to win over 6.5 games and get $2.20 for it. Or I can bet D'Amico Ryans to win Coach of the Year, and you'll make way more money doing that.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So we'll move on now to, and this can just be a quick exercise, who we are thinking for our playoff teams. So, John, who are your AFC playoff teams this year?
So AFC, I thought about it a lot. So I think the Dolphins are in a really good chance of winning the East. I've got the Titans for the South. I've got the Chargers for the West, which, like I was saying, I stacked it. And for the North, I had the Ravens, which I'm cooling on a little bit.
Yes.
Wild cards as well. Wild cards, I had the Bills, the Chiefs, and the Steelers.
So that's going to be in a bit of a different than mine. So I actually have Cincinnati winning the North.
Okay.
I've got Cincinnati, Jacksonville, Buffalo, and Kansas City. And then my wild card teams I have are the Dolphins, the Ravens, and the Jets.
Yeah.
So they're mine. I don't have the Chargers in my playoffs.
But that's South.
My South was Jacksonville.
Yeah, okay.
And I think it's just one of those things, but this just shows to me how stacked the AFC is. I can't find a spot in my mind for the Chargers, and they could, I wouldn't be surprised if they won the AFC West this year. I don't expect it myself, but it wouldn't shock me if they did. So
Yeah, and that's the other thing with my pick is like if Justin Herbert is not winning MVP and he's just sort of general average middle of the road Justin Herbert, then yeah, there's a good chance they won't make the playoffs.
yeah. So Dan, who's your AFC playoff teams?
Okay, so I've got Jacksonville, Buffalo. I've got Baltimore winning the division. Actually, I've got Baltimore and Cincy tied at 11 wins this year, but by default, I've got Baltimore winning the division. And then I've got Kansas City winning their division. And then I've got Cincinnati, Miami, and Chargers getting in as well.
Yeah. So pretty much we've all ended up picking roughly the same teams, just with a minor difference here and there. So I don't mind that. So then while you're on it, Dan, who have you got as your NFC playoff teams?
So I've got Philly winning the division, and then I have Detroit winning the division this year. I think I've got them at 10 wins, and I've got Minnesota at 9 wins, I believe. So I think Detroit sneaked that one out. Then I've got San Fran winning their division and Atlanta by default winning their division because we spoke about this and they could all be under 500 this year.
Yeah.
So I've got Atlanta winning by default. And then I've got Seattle, Minnesota, and Dallas making the playoffs as well.
Yeah. Okay,
Sadly, no Packers this year. I think they'll be on the verge, but I just can't put them in this year yet.
Well, you may enjoy our other co-host. So, John, who is your NFC teams?
Yeah, so I went with Dallas to win the division. I went with Seattle as well. I went with the Packers, again, stacking that with my coach of the year pick. And I've gone the Saints. Then for wildcards, I went Philly, Detroit, and the 49ers. Reluctantly.
Reluctantly. See, we've all ended up with roughly the same teams. I've got Philadelphia winning, the 49ers, Detroit, and I actually do have the Falcons winning the South because I'm trying not to show my homerism. But then I have Minnesota, Seattle, and Dallas as my wildcard teams.
Yeah.
So then with that,
just quickly on a side note, with everything going on this offseason, not one of us have the Jets even sneaking a wildcard place. Oh, you got the Jets, sorry.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I've got them in ahead of the Chargers.
Okay, I was trying to work out. I didn't hear you say that. So
yeah, no, I just have the Jets. I think their defense is going to win a lot of games, and I think that they were so close to making the playoffs last year, and they had Zach Wilson and Mike White as their quarterback for most of the year. So even though he didn't have the best year last year, even broken-thumbed Aaron Rodgers was still a better quarterback than what Zach Wilson was. So if he can be anything back to, even if he's not to the same level as his MVP seasons, if he's just somewhere close to that, then I think that they win enough games to make it in as a wild card. So
yeah, because I had Buffalo at 12 wins, Miami at 11, and I've got New York at 10.
Yeah. To your skepticism though, Dan, I'm sort of with you there where it's like, think about what Tom Brady had to do when he arrived in Tampa to get to the Super Bowl eventually. Like the first 6 games, that team was bad. The offense was not clicking at all. Now, luckily, Tom Brady has ruined a lot of expectations that we might have for Aaron Rodgers and previous people. Like Peyton Manning did not win in his first year in Denver. But I guess stranger things have happened there. So, yeah, I think it might need an extra season for it to all click together, but we'll see.
I think they need that offensive line too.
They've got the hardest strength of schedule from what I've seen.
My biggest concern is that offensive line. If that offensive line isn't healthy or they don't play well, then, that could be a disastrous season for the Jets. So we've given our playoff team. So we'll give our AFC champions and our NFC champions. So I have the Bengals as my AFC champs and I have the 49ers as my NFC champs. So, John, what's your Super Bowl matchup, I guess?
Yeah, so I've gone Chargers, depending on Herbert winning MVP, and against the Cowboys, and I've got the Cowboys going all the way.
That's disgusting.
Sorry, man. I really think defenses win Super Bowls, and I think it's going to be a very good defense.
Yeah, it's gonna be. So, Dan, who's your Super Bowl matchup?
I've got Buffalo versus Philly.
And
And I think
then
Philly
Philly
take
win?
the step to win their Super Bowl.
Yeah, okay. So my Super Bowl winner I have this year is the Cincinnati Bengals, which goes with my Jamar Chase and Zach Taylor stack that I have. So it's a good year for Cincinnati fans,
According to Brad.
according to me. According to me. So
Not according to me. I didn't even have him making the playoffs.
exactly. That's where but that's what I mean though with the AFC. That's with how stacked it is. You both had the Chargers in. I couldn't find a spot for them, but yet then I have the Bengals winning the Super Bowl, and John couldn't even get them in the playoffs. So that to me just shows how stacked this AFC is this year.
If you're an AFC team and you have a couple of slip ups along the way,
yeah,
it's going to have massive repercussions on that season.
Yeah.
I'll be interested to see how healthy Burrow stays for the season. And I think the loss of Jesse Bates and is it Von Bell was the other one?
Yeah.
I think that they're going to be bigger than people realize on the defensive side.
Yeah. Well, in saying that, we will now go through. Let's go through and we'll pick our winners for the first week of the season, starting on Thursday night football, Friday morning, if you're in Australia, with the Kansas City Chiefs at home against the Detroit Lions. So, fellas, we'll start with John. What's your prediction on this game?
Yeah, so I've been watching these lines closely from a sports betting perspective, gamble responsibly. For months this season, the line has moved between 6.5 and 7. As of today, however, it has started to push towards Detroit +6. So there are some sharp people coming in on Detroit late, but I think that the build-up will sort of push that out again. I do think Kansas City win this game. I don't think it's particularly close. I think that in order for Detroit to win, I mean, they don't have Jameson Williams. They don't really have any decent receiving options, outside of like maybe Khalif Raymond, but it's all going to be Amon-Ra St. Brown, who, if he gets double teamed, they're going to have to rely heavily on the run between David Montgomery and Jahmyr Gibbs, who I think Jahmyr Gibbs will play a lot out of the slot as well. So I just think KC have all the weapons. They've got the home crowd. They got Mahomes. They got Andy Reid. I can't see them losing this game.
Dan, what's your same boat?
Yeah, I think Chiefs 35-27.
Yeah, so I've got the Chiefs winning as well. My only question, and this, John, you might be able to answer this because you have been looking at the lines. Do you think that maybe that line has started to shift because Chris Jones might not be playing?
Yeah, 100%. I think that is why.
Do you reckon do you reckon the line changes significantly before the game starts? Or do you reckon it'll hover around that 6 to 6.5 sort of range?
I think I would not be surprised if it goes back through the 7. But the only reason I say that is because it's opening night, and usually like the casual bettor comes along at 5:30 on a Thursday night in America, and it's like, oh yeah, that's right, there's a football game tonight.
Yeah,
I'm going to bet that. Who's playing? Oh, the Chiefs. Sweet, they're good. Patrick Mahomes is good. I'm going to bet the over. And so it's just what people do. They get excited. They bet the Chiefs heavy. They'll bet the overs, which the over opened at 51.5. It's up to 54. It's going nuts. For me, it's all unders.
Yeah. No, that's sort of that's going to be the big piece of this. Chris Jones, I don't think it doesn't seem like he's going to be there for week 1. So that will be.
Chance, I think he's there.
And that'll be the interesting thing because he's one of the people who's actually come out and said, I've made enough money in my career. I'm willing to sit out multiple weeks for this season until I get the contract that I want. So
I made enough money, but I want more.
Pretty much. But he's
what I'm getting offered.
pretty much. So now we'll move on to the Sunday games / Monday morning games for us here. So we start off, we have the Minnesota Vikings versus the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. I am going Vikings all the way in this one. Dan, are you Vikings as well, or are you siding with Baker Mayfield?
Tampa Bay, because what do they say? F the Vikings? But no, it's Minnesota by 20 plus.
John, are you
I'm going to be looking out for a couple of things in this game. And I think it's really going to set the tone for the year. So the Bucs are going to Minnesota. If Minnesota regress to what we all think that they're going to, and Baker has 2 great receiving options plus that defense, think about, have we heard this story before? Who's a quarterback who's had a really rough go at it, who's made his way around a few teams, who then all of a sudden got 2 elite receivers and a really good organization to be around?
I love how every conversation comes back to Geno.
Has to, man. Like I think their situations are not too dissimilar.
I could see it.
Yeah, I've not completely ruled Baker out. But I think as a first game on the road, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers are gonna probably have a bit of a tough one. Yeah, I gotta go the Vikings.
It's funny. Every time I look at the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, I sit there and go, "Oh, they're not going to be very good this year." And then you look at the names and you're like, Mike Evans, Chris Godwin,
That's what I'm saying.
Levante David,
The
Devin
defense is
White,
still the
Vita
same
Vea. Like,
defense.
you sit there and you start looking at it and you go, "Damn, they got some really good pieces." But
Yeah.
yeah, so we're a clean sweep on the Vikings there. Next game is going to be very interesting. It's the Pittsburgh Steelers at home to the San Francisco 49ers with Brock Purdy. So thoughts on that game, John?
I think the Steelers win this game outright. Similar to what I was saying when we were looking at the breakdowns, I think the Steelers play in the playoffs. I think they're a great team. They're a well-coached organization. Kenny Pickett, he looked really good at the end of last season. He looked very good in the preseason. He's got some great weapons, and I think he sort of is taking a bit of shine away at the moment, the spotlight away from the defense. Like the defense is fantastic. They got Cam Hayward, Minka Fitzpatrick. They've got like a stacked team from start to finish. So yeah. Just the one thing I'll say about the 49ers as well, not because I hope they suck, but like I'm going to be interested to see Brock Purdy. I want to see him start to play a full season and what that looks like.
And coming off that injury is a cause for concern as well, because we just don't know how he's going to look, especially too if he gets hit that first time. Like for me as a Panthers fan, one of the things I just remember is when Cam Newton had a couple of his shoulder surgeries, and then he had it was a Thursday night game against Pittsburgh, and he went to throw and he got absolutely smashed in a hit by TJ Watt, and his shoulder's never been the same since then. So, I know that was a shoulder and this is a UCL, but it still gives you that cause for concern. So,
yeah.
Are you team Steelers or are you team 49ers there, Beard?
Clean sweep with the Steelers. Like you said, I think Brock Purdy will take a little bit of time just to get back to that level that he was at.
Mm.
And that injury's got to play a massive part in his mind as well. And like John said, Kenny Pickett has looked good this preseason. I've not always been a big fan of his, but he's looked really good this preseason. So if he can take that into week one, like you said, that defense for the Steelers is super good as always. I think San Fran will have a pretty tough time week one against them.
Yeah,
until home. They start to get settled, I think, with Purdy there as well. So I think Steelers take this one.
And one of the things, too, to keep an eye out for anyone is Mike Tomlin, no matter how good or bad that team is, he's such a good game plan. And like you think back to last year, everyone was all aboard the hype train for the Cincinnati Bengals, and Mitchell Trubisky beat the Cincinnati Bengals last year with that team. Like the Steelers almost feel like one of those teams that's really hard to bet against in week one, no matter how good or how bad their team. They just got such a good setup. So,
hey John, just
to add to that as well.
What's the total points line on this game?
It's only 41.5. It's not much. It's not the lowest of the week, but it's down.
Yeah, I'm under that. I'm 21-17.
Yeah. Brad, to what you were saying last year as well, like I know it was Trey Lance and I know it was torrential rain, but the 49ers still went to Chicago and lost to the what do they call the wooden spooners? What do we call them in the NFL? Like the last place Chicago Bears was one of their wins came against the 49ers in week one. So
yeah, exactly. So you're coming across Pittsburgh, they've got a really good home crowd advantage as well. There's not a lot of teams in the NFL who seem like they've got a really good home crowd advantage, but the Steelers are definitely one of them. So moving on to the next game, we have the Washington football team Commanders versus the Clayton Tunes Cardinals. It seems like, well, actually, they haven't announced the starter yet, but Commanders versus Cardinals. Yeti, I'll let you start. What's your thoughts?
I missed a perfect opportunity when we were talking about Offensive Rookie of the Year, and I'm so pissed off at myself. As soon as we stopped talking about it, I'm like, you idiot, what are you doing? We had that moment set up for us, but...
Looney Tune?
What, Clayton Tune for the Super Bowl?
Clayton Tune, Offensive Rookie of the Year. Let's do it. But we got sidetracked there. But for this game, how do you bet on Arizona at all this year?
Mm.
Doesn't matter who they're playing. How do you bet on them at all? So I have Washington winning. I don't know what to expect from Sam Howell. He looked good in the preseason game. So I think a lot rides on him, obviously, but I would put my money on Washington winning that game.
Are you on the same boat, John?
This game opened at Commanders -6. It's moved all the way out to Commanders 7.5. So there's something that people really like about Sam Howell, I'm guessing, because I don't know what else has changed. Have the Cardinals had any huge injuries or something? I don't
I was
think
going to
so.
say that seems small to begin with. I would have thought it was
Yeah, I
a
would have thought
bigger
it'd be
gap than
close.
that.
I actually would have thought it would have been closer to maybe 9.5, 10
Yeah.
sort of thing.
Yeah, but the over under is 38.
That's why. Yeah, okay,
37
so
and a half.
that's why.
Yeah, it can't go if it gets get any lower. They can't spread it out that fast. So
My thought on that just seems to be, sorry to cut you off there, John.
that's
My
fine.
thought on that just seems to be maybe because they don't know who the quarterback is. Like
Yeah,
it's
that's it. That's it.
Josh Dobbs, Clayton Tune. I'm not sure how much it swings either way, whoever you put as the starter, but
Once they name Clayton Tune the starter, it could drop down to 2.5.
I actually think that this will be a fairly competitive game. I don't see the Commanders completely blowing out the Cardinals, although that defense, the Arizona defense, does look really bad. But yeah, it says a lot, doesn't it, that the Commanders are getting that much respect with Sam Howell sort of in his first starting game of the year. Yeah, I guess I'll go Commanders. I'm not going to overthink it.
yeah, I'm with you. I don't have the Cardinals winning too many games this year. So we move on to the next one, which will be to steal a Bill Simmons guess the lines comment here. This for me would be a watchable game for the pure fact that it's one of my favorite prospects from the draft, Anthony Richardson and the Indianapolis Colts versus the Jacksonville Jaguars. This would be interesting for me also too to see if Anthony Richardson ends up being the type of prospect that I think he could be in the next couple of years. This would be to me, this is the rivalry that I want to see within the division for the next 10 years is Trevor Lawrence versus Anthony Richardson. So I have the Jags winning this game though. I don't think that the Colts will win too many games this year, but I want to watch it because I want to see how Anthony Richardson does this season. So John, any line movements all of a sudden as of late? Because last I saw, I think that it was Jags by about 4 or 4.5, I think.
Yeah, and it's now -5. That opened at -3.5 for the Jags on the road against the Colts. You talk about the Cardinals being the worst team in the league. I actually wouldn't be surprised if the Colts are one of the worst teams in the league. I don't think they're going to get too many wins, and I think they're going to have a tough time this year against the Jags and the Titans. So whether it's Indianapolis, Jacksonville, or London, I think the Jags should be all over the Colts here.
Yeah, Dan, you're clean sweeping this.
I think Jaguars win this comfortably, to be honest.
This is a bit boring for all of our listeners because we've agreed on every game so far, and I think that's going to continue here with this game. The next game here is Baltimore home to the Houston Texans. I've got the Ravens winning this one as well. Dan, you're on the same page?
Yeah, I think it's the start of Lamar Jackson revenge tour where I think he can be. He was my pick last year for MVP, but then obviously the injuries happened. I think he can be up there again this year if he stays healthy in that offense. He could really give the MVP a good run this year. So I think Baltimore win this comfortably.
And you have Baltimore as winning the division, so I think it's pretty easy there for you, John, to say that you're chalking this one up for the Ravens.
What I will say though is last season, every year, every game that the Texans were double-digit underdogs, they covered. So don't always rule them out. Now it is only 9.5 at the moment, the line, but I wouldn't be surprised if this is the first time we're going to see Baltimore in their new offensive system. Now, obviously, it's nice that they get sort of an easier opponent to test it out on week 1, though we do expect the Texans defense to be quite improved. I think it's going to take a couple of weeks, so I definitely have the Ravens here. But I reckon if this game were in week 12 or week 13, it would be a lot closer.
Yeah, I'm in agreement with that one. So this next game might actually be our first difference in opinion between the three of us. The New Orleans Saints are home to the Tennessee Titans. So, John, you were quite high on the Titans. So, Are
Yeah.
you heading that way, or are you going with the home team here in New Orleans?
I also had the Saints winning the division as well as the Titans.
Mm.
So, when I first before preseason, I had the Titans winning this one on the road. I've kind of pulled on that a little bit, though, even though I think they'll still be good, and I really like Mike Vrabel. Oh my gosh. Derek Carr looked good in the preseason, and I think he's got some good weapons. I think the defense will be good. So yeah, I'll go the Saints.
Dan, what are your thoughts?
I was on the Saints, but then Alvin Kamara got his suspension, which I think we're expecting anyway. But I think Titans could pull this one out, to be honest. I think it's one of those games where it's a flip of the coin. Like, it could go either way so easily. I think it'll be a tight battle the whole game. So, but I think Titans can pull it out.
I do have a bet on the Titans as well at like plus 3.5.
Well, I'm with John on this one. I've got New Orleans home against the Titans. I think that's going to be the difference in this. Is just going to be the home field advantage, and I think the thing is too we've got to see what Tennessee looks like on offense and on defense, because there are a lot of new parts there. So, that this might be another one too, as you were sort of mentioning as well, John. If this was week 8, it might be completely flipped between all. We just might have a lot more clarity on these two teams. So
I think, for both teams, there's a lot of answers that need to be, a lot of questions that need to be answered straight away. Like with week 1, we don't know what's going to happen with them. We don't know what to expect from them. So could easily go both ways.
Yeah, so we'll move on to the next game, which is going to be, I think it might be a pretty decent game here. We've got the Cleveland Browns at home to the Cincinnati Bengals. So I'll just kick this one off quickly. I have the Bengals winning, but only just. I think it's going to be a lot closer game than what I probably would have thought 6 weeks ago. I think this could actually be a maybe one possession Evan McPherson kick with 3 seconds left on the clock type of win. So, John, your thoughts on this game?
Yeah, this one was a stay away for me. It's not on my card at all. It pains me to say it, but I think the Browns will probably win this one. Like I said, didn't have the Bengals making the playoffs, nor do I have the Browns for that matter. But I think that they've got some new things that they're going to try out. And yeah, they can all revolve around Nick Chubb and what he's able to achieve. I think he's going to give the Bengals a tough time.
Yeah. Dan?
I've got the Bengals winning. I don't think we've seen enough from Deshaun Watson yet since coming back to be comfortable picking them over the Bengals. So I've got them winning. Not by a lot, but they're my tip.
See, I'm pretty much the same as well with you, John, in the sense of like this is a complete stay away game, because I think even in the last couple of hours in looking at this schedule, I've gone back and forth between the two teams as to because I think it like on paper the Browns do have a really good roster all over, and so do the Bengals, but there are concerns from both sides. So I think I'm just going to give the edge to the Bengals on this, but I wouldn't be surprised. It's one of those games I'm not going to be completely shocked if the Browns come out and win week 1. It's not going to blow my socks off, and I'll be thinking that, that's completely unheard of, and now the Browns are going to lose every game for the rest of the season sort of thing. So,
yeah, and like you said, like we were talking about this time last year, Bengals lost their home opener to the Steelers, and then they lost on the road to the Cowboys. So they turned around, and they were able to, but it was a slow start for them, and slow starts for the Bengals is quite a common theme as well.
I think how healthy Burrow is to start the season. He's still got that little niggle, so they're expecting him to obviously be healthy week 1, but just how healthy is he? Which would be my biggest concern for them, but I still think they win.
Yeah. So we move on to a NFC South divisional game, the Atlanta Falcons at home to the Carolina Panthers. So, Dan, what's your thoughts on this one?
I think I have no idea who's going to win this game. And I think that comes down to what we're expecting from the whole division for the whole year as well. So I think Atlanta will win in a super tight game. I think they're more further along than where Carolina are at this point, because they've been together with their quarterback. Like Desmond Ridder started games last year and looked semi-decent. So I think he'll take a bit of a step to start the year. So I think Atlanta pull this one out. in a bit of a grind out game.
Yeah, what are you looking at there, John?
Yeah, it's also not on my card. I can't get a read on this game either, though the over-under is 39.5, so it's the second lowest of the weekend. I lean the Falcons, and it's for the same reasons Dan was saying. Ritter's just been in the building a little bit longer than Bryce has. It's going to be Bryce Young's first game. I think he's going to struggle. Not in a way, and I don't think Arthur Smith is going to give him, the Bill Belichick, first rookie game sort of treatment. But the Falcons defense, on paper, it's meant to be completely like bolstered and revamped. So I'm keen to see it in action, and they'll have a pretty, cake assignment for week one.
Well, I am probably a shock to no one. I've got Carolina in this, but it's one of those things that I was torn on. This is actually another game though too. I've been going back and forth between them. Like I don't think it's going to be a blowout either way. Because also part of it I look at too is these two teams last year split the divisional games last year. So Carolina actually probably should have won both games against Atlanta last year. This was the game where PJ Walker threw the 60-odd yard bomb to DJ Moore.
Yeah.
He caught the touchdown. He took the helmet off. He got pinged for the penalty, and then Zane Gonzalez missed the Eddie Pinheiro missed the extra point to win the game. So I've got Carolina in this and I think it's at the end of the day, it's to me, it's both teams have the question of I don't know what either side's going to look like on offense or on defense. Yeah. Atlanta probably has the better skill position players overall, but if you went like quarterback, Bryce is probably a better quarterback than Desmond Ridder. But how much does being around the team for that year and being in those sorts of practice, how much is that going to help? But then you look at the defensive side, Carolina just on paper has to me and to other people I've listened to that have a better defense.
Yeah.
But, we just don't know how they're going to play.
I think both teams will be looking at this as a way to start their season off with a win.
Yeah.
Divisional game too, to try and really put the foot down and because like you said, this division is so up in the air. You need some teams to start really putting their foot down and who's going to be the one who comes out as the leader of the pack in this one. So we move on to Mr. Johnny Lloyd Roberts' team, the Seattle Seahawks versus the LA Rams. And I will just say that I have the Seahawks winning at home against the Rams. So, John, I would assume that you would be a Seahawks win there as well, you think?
Yeah, I'm all over the Seahawks here. Interestingly, this game opened at 5.5 for the Seattle and has never moved. So, actually, it opened at 5. But I'm surprised by that because I'm not sure that the Rams corners are going to be too much of a problem for us. And I think that Jackson Smith-Njigba is playing. Jamal Adams has been reported he's not playing. And I think Devin Witherspoon also is not playing. But, I think we've got some good safeties back there in Diggs and Julian Love playing his first game with the Seahawks. Got Rick Woolen. So I think we'll be okay.
Dan, what's your vibe on this?
Seattle winning this one. I think Rams are going to have a tough season. And I think with Cooper Kupp having his hamstring issues, that just makes it even harder for them this week especially. So I think Seattle fairly comfortably, but I think Rams will give them too much trouble.
So it's just great how their schedule's worked out. We then move on to the Yetis team. It's the Chicago Bears at home versus the Green Bay Packers. Now, this is one that, listening to the Bill Simmons podcast with Guests Alliance, I was absolutely shocked to hear that the Chicago Bears were 1.5 point. Was it -1.5 for the Bears? I think I heard. So I was awfully surprised.
Sorry, you missed. It opened Bears -2.5 before preseason.
And now it's down to 1.5, isn't it?
Now it's Bears -1. And I tell you, I'm picking the Packers here.
Yeah, I was on the Packers too. But Dan, I guess that you are like us. You're going to go with your team.
That is the easiest money of the week, Packers over the Bears.
I just think I need to see this Bears defense. I know they picked up from the Bills Edmonds. And then they've been trying to acquire. Didn't they also acquire Unique Ngakoue as well?
Yeah, they signed him. Yeah,
or was it some other vet? I can't remember. Yeah, so They've added a few pieces, but I need to see this team in action. I know that they're at home, but the weather's going to be good, so it shouldn't impact that too much.
Mind you, this was also week one last year. They were in the monsoon game against the 49ers and beat them week one. Then they didn't win for about another 9 or 10 weeks after.
Yeah, I don't think monsoon is on the cards.
On the forecast.
Weather on Saturday is going to be 22 degrees. Sorry, Sunday, 22 degrees and sunny.
And you look at how the Packers have been starting the last few seasons. They've always got off to slow starts. I don't think they're doing that this year.
Yeah.
I think they've made a conscious effort to get Jordan Love as many reps as they can while keeping him healthy in the preseason and get him looking good. And like we've said, he's looked really good. So I think he's ready to go.
Yeah, I was listening to something or watching something, and they were talking about the Packers and J.E. Alexander, and the reason he got burned by Justin Jefferson in week one was because they were really like stubborn, the Packers, in trying to stick to this particular defensive structure and style.
Yeah.
Versus week 17, where he absolutely shut down Justin Jefferson, and that's when they just said, okay, just go do your thing, we'll let you go.
Yeah.
I think they'll learn from that.
I think Joe Barry has to learn from that and play to the strengths of his players, obviously, instead of the scheme that he likes to run a lot more. So I think there'll be a massive change in a shift in scheme for the Packers this year.
Yeah, and when you think of that too, Jair will be, you'd think would be shadowing DJ Moore for most of that time, and it's just, I'm in on the Packers, but yeah, if the Bears happen to come out and shock the world and Justin Fields makes that leap, well, sky's the limit. I don't know what to think from then onwards. It could just be a once off, or this could be. So this to me is the Packers, but
look, I give the Bears and Justin Fields a lot of shit because it's the Bears. And Justin Fields has not looked good as a passer in the NFL yet, but he's a good passer. So I think we're going to see a lot better from him this year. But in saying that, it's still the Packers in week one. It's always the Packers against the Bears.
Right. Well, we'll move on. This, I think, could actually be the game of the day. I think it's the LA Chargers at home to the Miami Dolphins. This one, I'm absolutely fascinated to see how these teams line up. So we'll start with you, Dan. Chargers at home against the Dolphins. Who's your pick?
Dolphins.
Tell me more.
I just think Tua coming back healthy. We saw what he did when he was healthy last year. He was a top 5 quarterback, to be honest.
He was like, wasn't he first in passing yards or something like that?
He was lighting it up. Tyreek Hill wants to go over 2,000 yards this year. Who's going to say that he's not able to do that? And another year with Mike McDaniel there in his system, I think they'll get off to a flyer this year. And I think it's going to be a massive shootout.
That's what I'm hoping for if I'm watching this game. John, what's your thoughts on it?
I'm on the Chargers for this one. I think we saw over the back half of the season last year, the defense really did start to put it together. As far as we're aware, there aren't too many injuries to report of. Is JC Jackson good to go, or is he still going to miss it? I can't remember. I think I heard a report he might miss.
I think, I'm not sure. I have to check on that, but I think he might miss this game, I think.
I really like the addition of Kellen Moore because it kind of says, okay, Staley, you focus on the defense. That'll be your thing. And then Kellen Moore, you focus on the offense and you can control that. And then they can sort of like work their magic and do what they do best together. Now, it is a tough assignment to start week one, but they are at home. Look, having said that, there could be more Dolphins fans in the stadium than Chargers fans.
I was about to say.
But I think that the Chargers, I think week one, healthy Justin Herbert, they got the receivers. It should be good to go.
Yeah, I'm just trying to find. I can't really see anything on JC if it's been confirmed, but I am on the Chargers for this game, but I feel like this to me is one of those ones. I feel if Jalen Ramsey was playing, I probably would flip-flop and be on the Dolphins, I think.
Yeah.
I think him being out for the length of time that he's going to be out for is going to be massive for that defense because he's going to play that star role under Vic Fangio and he could be all over the field, but without him, just when you put Jalen Ramsey out there, it just tilts the field in a different way for that defense. So, yeah, Chargers for me. in this one, but I'm really looking forward to watching that game. A game I'm not really looking forward to watch is the Denver Broncos versus the Las Vegas Raiders. I'm in on the Broncos, and that's about the extent of my analysis on that. John, what have you got for us?
Yeah, that Broncos defense is going to be a problem for Jimmy G and the Raiders team, and the Broncos are at home.
Sean Payton, first game of coach, I think he'll want to make a bit of a statement, and especially after the comments he made about Nathaniel Hackett and the way the coaching staff went last year. If Sean Payton comes out and loses week one, he's got a target on his back for those comments as well. So, yeah, I think Broncos win in one of the worst games of the week.
Yeah. I fully expect to watch 0 minutes of this game next week. So, moving on to the last of the afternoon games, it's the New England Patriots at home to the Philadelphia Eagles. I've got Philly in New England, even though the Patriots are going to be honoring Tom Brady that week, and it's all Brady mania and it's at home for the Patriots. They just really struggle against running quarterbacks. So I feel that Jalen Hurts is going to light them up, and maybe not light them up is the right word, but I think he's going to play really well, and they're just going to struggle to contain him. So I have the Eagles in that one. John, what's your thoughts on this one?
Yeah, exactly what you said. As good as Bill Belichick is defensively, he has really struggled over the years against rushing quarterbacks. He sort of really hasn't had an answer for them. Even if you think back to last year when the Chicago Bears came to town to Foxborough, they ran all over the Patriots. They won that game something like 31-17, I want to say. Or I think it might have even been 2 scores. But yeah, so I'm going to go with the Eagles on this one.
Is it a clean sweep for you,
Yeah.
there, Dan?
I think this is an easy clean sweep. I don't think, or I know that the Patriots offense doesn't have enough points in them against this Philly defense. And we know how many points Philly can score. So I think they win comfortably.
So we move on to Sunday night football game. It's another divisional game. It's the New York Giants at home to the Dallas Cowboys. I'm all in on the Cowboys in this one. As much as the Giants improved over last year, that Cowboys team is legit. That defense is so good. And one of their main, I guess you could say, their deficiency last year was who was that second cornerback behind Trayvon Diggs, and they went and traded for Stephon Gilmore. They boosted that wide receiver room by getting Brandon Cooks. So I am all in on the Cowboys. Dan, are you joining me on that train?
Yeah, I hate to say it, but I think Cowboys win. Always like seeing Cowboys lose, but I think they'll have too much firepower for New York.
And John?
Yeah, same here. I think the only things I like about the Giants is Brian Dable, and the defensive line has a lot of speed on it. But the Cowboys have answers for that on their offensive line. They've got the defense. It's going to be a problem for Daniel Jones. It's really probably going to be the Saquon Barkley show. Outside of that, it's going to be tricky for these little receivers to run around them.
To me, it's going to be Saquon Barkley, and it's going to be Darren Waller, who, if Dallas are with Dan Quinn, the mastermind on defense, sitting there, you'd think they've got a plan for him to try and maybe bracket Darren Waller and try and say, like, Jalen Hyatt, Sterling Shepard, you guys beat us. Like, that's sort of thoughts that you'd have behind that. So we come to the last game of the week. It is Monday Night Football. It's the New York Jets at home to the Buffalo Bills. John, give us your thoughts on this game.
Yeah, same thing as I was saying before. I think that even though the Jets have a fantastic new quarterback and it's going to be really great for their franchise, I think that it's going to take a few weeks, if not couple of months, to sort of all click into place and to get going. I like that they're at home for the opener, but I think that the Bills are going to probably have been thinking about this game for a long time. And similar to what we saw them, was it last year when they went to LA and just lit up the Rams after their Super Bowl win? So I think we see a similar sort of thing. This game as well, it opened with Bills -1.5, and it's now pushed out to Bills -2.5. So even despite the home field advantage for the Jets, people are still keen on the Bills.
Yeah. Dan, are you with the Bills on this one?
Yeah, I'm on the Bills. I think, like we've said, that Jets offensive line, it's not ready yet. Like, there's still so many issues there. So I think the Bills will be able to get pressure on Rodgers. And when Rodgers gets pressured a lot, we see how his play dips a little bit more than what it normally does. And I think that's what we'll see. First game with his new team. It'll be close. Like the line there, 2.5, I think. You're not going to expect a big blowout win by the Bills, but I think they're good enough to get it done. Even with all the hype of Rodgers coming in and the excitement of that, I think they'll have enough to win.
Yeah, I'm just going to say that I think the Bills win. I don't think it's going to be. I think too they lost last year to the Jets in one of their games when they probably should have won. I think the big thing that, as much as I could see them, would think a lot of people might think they might do what they did last year in week 1 against the Rams and come in and just absolutely blow out the Jets. The one thing that's going to be very different is they had Von Miller last year.
Right.
In that first game. And once Von Miller got injured, their pass rush really diminished throughout the year. You didn't have Greg Rousseau looked fantastic in that first game. I actually went back and watched that the other week, that first game, and Greg Rousseau looked really good in that game paired with Von Miller on the other side. Now, Von Miller's not there. They traded Boogie Basham just at cut down day to the Giants as well. So, they lose a bit there. Terrell Edmonds isn't playing on that defense. So I think that they're still a really good team. I just don't think they're going to maybe blow out the Jets as much as what some people might expect, just based off the fact too that they might score a lot of points, but if their defense is not as good, they might also give up a lot of points too. Like it's. I think once Von Miller gets back, that's really going to change the shape of that defense from there.
Nah, that's a good call. I really like to hear that.
So, any last thoughts, guys, before we get out of here for this episode?
I'm just glad football NFL's back.
Yeah.
That's it. Let's just get it going.
I know we spoke at the same time, and I'm pretty sure we just said exactly the same thing.
Pretty much.
I think so, yeah.
Football good.
We're all keen for football to come back. So there you are, guys. There's the 16 winners. You can put that in the bank. The 16 winners for this week. We've just nailed it all.
And my awards as well. MVP, Super Bowl, it's all there. If you need answers are right there.
But if you've been with us for this entire video, please like and subscribe on YouTube. You can follow us on Twitter or Twix or X or whatever you want to call it. You can follow me at BradBolt1. You can follow John at John Lloyd Roberts. You can follow the Yeti at Beard_82. And you can follow us at NFL Lab Network. So, football starting. We are all pumped. You're going to have a lot of good shows coming out this season from us. We're going to have a lot of fun. We'll try and do some recap shows after weeks. We're going to try and keep up with these sort of prediction shows. We're in for a big season. So thanks, John. Thanks, Dan. And to all of you out there, football's back and we'll see you next week.
Thanks, guys.
Back to the lab. Back to the lab. Welcome back to the lab. Back to the lab.